Hi everyone, this is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com. Today we have two tables of 1-2 no limit, 6 max, and we're going to try to play an extremely lag game and try to show these guys who's boss. I make no guarantees that I'll have a winning session, but I do guarantee I'm going to try and put these guys in some difficult spots. So we start off by raising ace-9 offsuit under the gun. And we get sort of, I guess, min raised here. This is a pretty interesting spot. I don't really see any value in getting sandwiched in between these two guys. It's a small raise, so obviously my odds are good. But I can just kind of create a situation where I can get myself in trouble if an ace flops. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a fold here. You know, it would be a great situation if I knew nobody had an ace, and the guys run hands like pocket kings and, you know, pocket eights or something like that, because, you know, if an ace flops, I'm in great shape. But it's just too likely that somebody's going to have a hand like, well, he did have a hand like kings, and I figured he'd probably have a big hand, but you know, it's just too likely somebody's going to have an ace with a bigger kicker, and I'm really not going to be excited no matter what comes. So in this case, we have a bunch of limpers, and we're going to go ahead and raise it up here and try and just steal this, what I pretty much perceive as dead money. These guys are just kind of calling, and they are pretty weak, and you can steal it from them pretty easily. Alright, so 4-5 off, a little bit of a loose open, but I'm going to go ahead and open it. I don't have any reads on any of these guys just yet, so I'm assuming everybody is just going to be playing pretty passively, at least from a perspective of what I'm used to, which is guys just playing very, very aggressively. And so I'm going to just try and isolate with the 3-8 off on the button. And with the 9-3 suited out of position, I'm going to go ahead and fold. And so decent flop in the respect that you know, he's going to have you know, a good king or jack to stay in there more than likely. So just going to make a continuation bet, and getting check raised here is no fun, and we're just going to have to give it to him. And with a king queen on the table on the right, with the limper, pretty easy squeeze even if we weren't trying to just punish the limpers. We're going to try and stay loose and aggressive, but both these hands are just total garbage, so I'm going to try and not get involved with those types of hands. But I am going to try and play just about every hand possible that has some decent implied odds, so most of the suited hands, you know, and some connectors and some pretty good situations to play them. But for the most part, it's just going to be sheer aggression. And we saw this guy make sort of a minimum raise, and it turned out to be a pretty big hand. So I'm going to give him credit and just fold here. Oh, excuse me there. At the end of the session, I'm going to get Poker Tracker up and going, and I just wanted to make sure that we were taken care of there. Didn't mean for it to pop in front of the screen, so I apologize. And so far at this point, you know, I like to label basically anybody that I feel like I have some substantial edge on. I like to label those players, and so far from this point, from what I've seen, is this guy isn't reloading to a full buy-in, and I would think most good players would do that, so I'm going to go ahead and give him a little F, which is sort of a loose term for fish, because he doesn't necessarily a fish, but like I said, just someone who I feel I have some pretty good edge on. So I'm just going to go ahead and label everyone. This Uno Brumo looks like a pretty solid, you know, reasonably loose aggressive player. He seems to clearly be a pro to me. So I'm going to leave him alone here. And mono booker just on the bottom right here, with the limp in, I'm going to go ahead and label him as a weakish player. And the other three guys I'm going to decide on throughout the video. So with 8-9 off, I'm going to just try and basically, I don't like the fact that this guy's basically trying to, raise all these pots and trying to basically take away the play from me. I don't think that's what he's trying to do, but he is kind of taking away the play. So I'm just going to try and get involved with him, and I really just want to bust him. And kind of also see what these minimum raises. They look to me to just be more or less a standard raise. But when we did get the cold caller, who's going to really often have a pocket pair of 7s or above here, and there's no reason a dev can't have a hand either, so I'm going to go ahead and give up on this pot unless an 8 or 9 rolls off. I don't really know what I could represent. The stacks aren't really deep enough for me to make a play here, although I would love to. I'm just going to fold. I'm putting Costa Bell on a weakish made hand. Okay, so I guess it was Ace King. I was figuring something along the line of 5s like a dev had. But Ace King did make some sense the way he played it as well. This a dev actually seems very pretty active. He's been in pretty much every pot, raising it up. And the table on the right is probably a better example of some more solid players. So we'll look for ways to exploit them as well. With the solid players, I like to just kind of pound, keep applying the pressure on them until they crack, basically, and I put them in a position where they just don't know how to handle the aggression and make mistakes, because they generally are the types that probably aren't going to give you a lot of easy money. So, but if you can get them off of their game, then you can turn them into the type of player that will give away their chips pretty easily. And so Uno Brumo could easily just be sensing that I'm isolating it here and be making a play, but and shoving is going to work a decent percentage of the time here, but probably not enough. So I'm going to fold. I think it would be a little negative EV for me to get involved any further. With a little better read, I could shove, given that it is a hand that, although not great, plays decently well against his calling range of my shove. And so King 7, I'm going to open from the button a little bit loose. And what I mean by plays decent against his calling range is it obviously doesn't play great, but if he does, at least you have some outs. It's not like having ace queen and going up against aces or something like that. Like I have the suitedness. I have around 30% equity, I believe, against a hand like kings or queens or jacks. And so it's not the end of the world when you get called. And so at the ace-9 here, I guess this was a limp call, then lead out. I'm not really sure what to make of this right now. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make it 50. I generally see this as weak. And that'll probably be the last money I put in the pot unless I get lucky with making an ace or a 9 or something. And so with the clubs getting there, it's a possible hand he could have. I mean, he could have a weakish sort of made hand like 6-7, something like that, 5-6, but this charade is definitely going to have to end right now. So, and with the king 10, I'm just going to go ahead and lead out, and if raised, I'm just going to have to get it in. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Sometimes you get it in against 10-9 or a flush draw like 4-5 of diamonds or something like that. So you can actually get it in good sometimes. And so the top board card pairs, I think what I'm going to do is tank it a little bit and check. I'm going to make it look like I might be going for a check raise or something like that. Maybe he'll give me a free pass on a hand with a jack in it, but I'm a little worried he does have that. He does have trip queens and isn't going to go anywhere. And so I don't think he has the queen now, but I kind of think I just got beat on the river, even making top pair. I'm going to check, and I might call some bet. But with 10-9 getting there, and the diamond draw getting there, and he is betting, so I don't think he's trying to bluff. There's really no reason for him to bluff. If he did have the jack, he would probably just show it down. I'm just going to fold here. I think I'm beat almost 100% of the time there. With jack 10, I'm going to go ahead and open. If he was slowing down on 2 queens, or with 3 queens, then I'm obviously still beat. The flush draw got there, the straight draw got there. The only possible hand is maybe if he had king 10 like me and then thought maybe he'd go for a tiny value bet on the river, because his bet was kind of small, which made it a little more tempting getting some pretty good odds. But sometimes you just have to ask yourself, sure, I'm getting 3 or 4 to 1 or whatever I was getting on the river there, but am I really even often that good? I hear it from a lot of players sometimes. They're like, how can you fold getting 4 to 1, 5 to 1? Well, because I was probably good there 1 in 100. That's why I folded, because you can't pay off in certain situations. I could not think of a hand that I can beat, so I have to fold. I'm going to go ahead and raise both of these up here. I used to make it 4 times the blind pre-flop plus 1 for the limper, and now I've kind of modified that where I just go ahead and make a pretty big raise, sometimes 6, 7, 8 times. And I can talk about that a little bit more later. And as far as this hand goes, this is pretty dicey, and I think I'm going to start off by checking and seeing what develops. And now that he bets, I don't think it's safe to get involved here out of position, so I'm going to fold. And with the 8-4 suited, I'm going to fold. So with the ace-2 suited, I'm going to raise and just try to steal. The reason why I like making it more, especially when in position against a limper, say if somebody limped like Shemp here would have limped, and say I would have had a hand on the button here, is that if I make it more, I'm more likely to steal it, for one. If he is going to call, he's just going to have to play an even bigger pot out of position against me. So I figure, maybe it's a little greedy, but I want to get in there and get a little bit more money. So I'm making it, well, as I say that, I make it only 10 here again in that exact position. So what do I know? Wow, that's pretty bonehead. It actually, thank God I did, because I got 3 bets, so I saved a little by not following my own advice as I was giving the advice. But a lot of times, I'll just make it 12 or 14 there, sometimes 10, and sometimes it might depend on my hand. Maybe if I want some action, I'll only make it 10. And, these are the types of opponents you can make plays like that where, I might get a question. I can already foresee a question in the forum, something like, well, if you made it smaller with your big hands and bigger with your weak hands, people are going to catch on. But that's not the case. We're playing against limpers. We're playing against people who don't play good poker. So they don't catch on to those types of things. And so you can just basically take the play and that has the highest expectation in a bubble and just make it over and over and over and over again against these types of people, because they will never catch on. So no balance is, in my opinion, absolutely worthless in these types of situations. Just make it whatever is the most plus EV play in a bubble. Now, if you did have, now for example, if I had a really good player on the button and say I was Sailor Dude and I was on the button. I'll start by raising this King Queen and folding the King 5. And say Mono Maker limped, and actually let's say I was Shemp. So I raise say a trash hand and I make it more. Well, if I have a good player on the button, I may not want to become predictable like that, because then he knows that I only raise more when I have nothing, and then he can just 3-bet me with his nothing and take down the pot with no problem. So balance is only important if there is reason to, and considering I don't have any history with any of these players, then balance is completely meaningless. So we're not getting a whole lot of interesting situations so far because my hands have not been that good, but hopefully we can at least talk about some pretty good concepts. This guy seems pretty loose. I'm going to go ahead and re-raise for value. A lot of times I like to call here in position with a hand like tens, but you know, for like future metagame type things, and just because I do have a strong, you know, top 5 hand, I think it's worth re-raising pre-flop. But that is not, you know, always going to be the case. You know, now he leads into me after getting re-raised. This is just a little frustrating because I just don't know what this means. I'm going to at least keep him honest for one call here, and who knows, I may just become a payoff wizard and play this pot to the end. I'm not sure. Now that he checks, the way the hand's played out, here's going to be my logic here. The way the hand's played out, I'm going to have to call a little bit of a river bet. And so I'm going to make that bet now and give up if he check raises me or calls. I'm just going to have to be done. And so I'm going to put that money in now rather than later. And who knows, maybe I get a hand like jacks to fold. So, and with the jacks here, I'm going to call and just shove a safe flop. I don't know enough about him just yet to 4-bet know if I should get it all in. The stacks were somewhat short, so that argues maybe for 4-betting, but I was kind of getting a little short on time and don't know enough about this opponent. So now I'm going to make a bet of you know, half to 2/3 pot, just see what he does, and then on the flop here on the right, I flopped Yahtzee, so I'm going to actually make a big bet into here because usually people can't lay down hands like 2-pair and pair of aces, stuff like that. So since I have a strong hand, I'm going to make a bigger bet and try to get paid even bigger. And unfortunately, I didn't get any action there. It's a type of board, especially against weaker opponents, where you can get a lot of action. So especially with my image, that was a little bit of a bad beat there not to get any action. King 4 off, I'm just going to fold against my presumably pretty tough playing big blind opponent. Art Cruiser, I just see now with some numbers coming in, only has a 4 pre-flop raise, so that was pretty dicey situation, I guess, with the jacks getting re-raised. And we'll just, I think deuce 6 I should probably muck here in the cutoff, given that the button plays pretty well and these other guys don't seem to have much of a fold button. So I guess my mouse is dying. That's pretty random. I may have to pause this video and reload, so to speak, on my mouse batteries. Yeah, I can already feel it working a little bit slower, so I'm going to pause this and be right back. Alright, so we're back here, and I have been 3-bet with King Jack suited, and I don't know I don't know a ton about my opponent here, so I think I'm just going to make a tightish fold. At high stakes, be pretty common to, or I should say not at high stakes necessarily, but against more aggressive opponents, it would be certainly correct to call in position there and outmaneuver or him post flop and just sort of get it in on a lot of flops, because guys will just 3-bet you with anything. But I don't know enough about this opponent, so I'm going to give him credit and sort of look at King Jack as the type of hand that can get me in a lot of trouble against when he has hands like aces and ace king and a king flops or a jack flops. So Jack 9, I'm going to fold. And the ace 4 here on the right, I just went ahead and isolated up the limper. And this guy just, I can't pick up anything against A-Dev, and it's a little frustrating because this guy's just, he's broken, he doesn't even know it. He's just not a very strong player, and he's just making these sort of weakish raises. But, you know, if I re-raise him, he's going to call, and then he's not going to fold very easily post-flop, so I don't really see any reason to get involved with these junk hands with him, so I'm just going to have to wait till I have a little something, and that's really annoying because my intention was to more or less kind of run over this table, and he's just sort of taken that play away. The other thing that's frustrating is he doesn't have a full buy-in. If he did, I might start getting involved with some more marginal hands and just try and run him over. But I don't want to bluff a guy who doesn't fold, and also doesn't have much of a stack to bully him with. But that's okay, you know, it's just, you just have to play your situation, you know. I mean, sometimes it's going to be correct to play, tight and aggressive. And sometimes in those situations, you know, I'll play at a 25-50 game or something like that, and I'll be sitting with 6 guys, and they're all just lags. And I don't need to do anything but sit back there and wait for premium hands and wait for it to go raise, re-raise in front of me when I'm sitting there with ace king or kings or aces or whatever. So, and then at the same time, I have a table like here on the right where guys just aren't that aggressive, and, it's good to run them over. I'm going to go ahead and just jam here. If he has a hand bigger than 8, A-Dev, then so be it. But I'm going to just go ahead and get it all in and try to get him to fold and be able to play a decent pot here with the 8s, but not a good flop. So, yeah, I think I'm not in good shape on the ace flops at all with that kind of action pre-flop. I could call, but this A-Dev, I mean, he could be putting in calls with suited connectors there. I mean, it's going to be rare he has a hand above 9, so I just kind of want to get rid of him. That, and I don't mind doubling, I mean, of course I don't want to lose and double him up, but I don't mind kind of taking this attitude of either just busting him or doubling him up, because if I double him up, at least I have position on him. I can get it back pretty easy, and he can have a stack to where I can start to push him around a little. This sort of spot right now where he's sort of half-stacked and playing the way he is not really ideal for me. I'd rather him, like I said, have more of a full stack or just get out of here. And that's obviously a good thing, because then I'll have all his money. And so we're just going to go ahead and make it about 16 here, the king 9. And we're going to fold the jack 4 due to the size of Joe Shanklin's stack. I just don't feel like he has enough to really push him around. So I've isolated before. I wouldn't be surprised. He's kind of thinking about it if I'm going to be facing some kind of limp re-raise or something like that. So it looks like he did call. And I think this is the type of flop where I'm not going to get it fold a ton, but I think often enough to be able to put out a little, like around a 2/3 bet and have it work often enough. So that's what I'm going to do. And I can, of course, improve maybe to the best hand if he does just have an ace and calls and I spike a 9 or king or something like that. But he's raised me now, and I think I'm going to have to give up on this hand. And the ace-6, not really a good hand to get involved with. Under the gun raises has a short stack. I can't expect to have any fold equity, and my hand does not play well post-flop, so I'm just going to have to fold pre-flop. So the ace-9, I'm just going to stick with what I've been doing, and hopefully, a situation comes up where I can, have a hand when I do this, or make a hand post-flop. Hands are sort of tied at the moment, but I'm going to just keep the pressure on. And wow, I turn an open-ended straight draw with the royal flush / nut flush draw. Boy. And he leads in, so I was going to wonder if I should check or take the free card, but I don't know. I don't really think I should raise here, even with my big draw, because we did start the hand a little bit deep to begin with, and it would be a little bit of an overbet to just get it in here. Secondly, with my image, he's likely to have a hand such as 2-pair, something that he's not going to fold. 2-pair might even be the bottom end of his range right here. So I am going to call with the nut draw, and we'll make a decision if we don't improve to the nuts, but do improve to a straight. Alright, so that's the way it's supposed to go, right? Make the nuts on the river. Let's hope he has something he can't get away from. So he bets, not totally committing himself, but maybe basically committing himself. So let's hope to get paid here. So I'm just going to shove for value all in. I really don't know what he could have that wants to bet that kind of amount on the river and then fold. So probably not his best play. If he has a hand like 2-pair, straight, something like that, he's probably better off just probably check folding given the action. I don't really know what he can expect me to have that he beats there. I mean, I did put in the call on the turn, and I'm going to take the showdown with, the 2-pair type hands, probably even a straight. Or I should say, given the flush made it there, I'm going to take the showdown with almost anything that's not a really strong flush. So I don't think he needed a bet out to get information or anything. He should have just probably check folded if he had a marginal hand, or bet called if he wanted to go for value but felt committed with a weaker flush. So with the king-jack suited, I'm just going to bet about 3/4 pot, and I'll certainly get it all in here if he does anything, and looks like that might be the case. So with the flush draw and the overcard, I'm probably, even when called, going to have some pretty decent equity, so I don't mind trying to just get all the money in there. So that's always a good situation when it works, because it's also, I mean, the nicest situation is obviously when he calls and then, that club rolls off on the turn and you give the little fist pump in the air, and that's always fun. But, I kind of like just chipping up a little and getting out of there and not even having to have a showdown. So Jack-8 suited, tiny bit of a loose open, but I'm an open. I tend to make it 3 times more in the earlier positions and 4 times in the later, just assuming I'm going to be playing the pot out of position a lot, and not really looking to play a big pot too often with being out of position. So, and I get let into, and I don't know what this means. If my image is not good for bluffing, I'm just going to fold. Alright, so our buddy A-Dev limps in. I'm just going to raise him with the 4-7 suited. Uno Bromo may be going through a little wave of dead cards. I would have expected him to come after me a little more, given all of the isolating and such that I've been doing, and just the fact that his numbers dictate that he's going to be the type that's going to 3-bet you a lot pre-flop. And I was kind of looking forward to handling that dynamic. But he may not have the situations, and so or maybe his numbers are skewed for whatever reason. I'm not sure, but that potential battle hasn't materialized. Continuation betting was maybe a tiny bit optimistic in the first place with the 4-7 suited against the guy that doesn't fold, but certainly there's just nothing I can do now, so I'm just going to have to toss the hand. If it was more of a dry flop, it would have been an easy continuation bet, but against this guy with the type of board that hits a decent part of his limp calling range, I could have maybe decided to just kind of give up on that charade. And with the sixes here, I'm just going to make it 10. I really would rather just take it down right now. With a hand like sixes, I'm just not going to flop too well too often, except for this time. That's a nice flop. He is short enough, and I did swell the pot pre-flop enough to consider, maybe just checking behind and trying to play it slow. But I think he's just going to pay off, and we have seen him check raise bluff, so maybe he's going to pay off all in for sure if he has a king. I kind of like just making a smallish bet, maybe trying to induce his check raise a little, and then going from there. So he does call, and so we'll hope he has a king, because like I said, I don't think he's going to get away from it. Hopefully it's not a hand like ace-4, because that's probably going to fold when I make this bet here, but I certainly need to bet, and the board did just get a little more draw heavy, so I'm going to bet 30 into 40, and then that'll set up an easy river all in if he does have something that wants to pay off. He's thinking about it, so I am a little worried he has a hand, like I said, like ace-4 that's just going to fold, but what can you do? I can't give a free card. The board got a little more vulnerable, plus I risk not getting paid the maximum when he does have a king. I'd definitely be ashamed to let a guy who will more than likely pay off all the way to the river off cheap when you flop a set, so that wasn't really an option for me to check there, I don't think. So Poison Ivy on the bottom left makes it 20 pre-flop. Don't know what that means. I can almost guarantee you that's not a good play. And I should probably take that opportunity to mark him down as a weaker player. Let me own you. I don't really see him as somebody that's going to be owning much of anyone. Half a buy-in, didn't sit in full, doesn't seem to be doing anything special, so I'm going to label him as a weaker player as well. And with the 3-10 suit, I'm just going to call this time, and with the 7s, I'm going to raise it up. So not entirely sure on JF. I'm thinking he's a weaker player. There has been some limping pre-flop. And Mono Maker is 41 VPIP, clearly a weaker player. So it's nice to have a table. Looks like one good player per table. Shemp seems a little weak, like I said as well. So we got all those marked. And with the 7s, I certainly have set odds, only calling 14 more, and I may also have the best hand, or may be able to outmaneuver him at some point post-flop. So I don't think re-raising is good. I think calling is the play. And type of board that I honestly don't know. I mean, sometimes I like to bet here just because it's weak, but then my hand is totally a bluff, whereas it might be the best hand. I mean, that would argue maybe for betting also because I'm protecting my hand. But you know what? A lot of times the guy's just going for a check raise here, flop like queen. So I do hate to put in any more money without flopping a set. So it's close. It's a balancing act. I think betting, checking's fine. I'm going to check this time. And now with the jack hitting, I can beat absolutely nothing. The only thing I was really hoping for is the ace-king. and so I'm going to have to give up. I'm a little torn, I'll have to be honest. I get in that situation sometimes, and I get checked too. And I've debated on what the best play is, and truthfully I'd like to hash that out with maybe another, with some other players and see what they think. I'm going to fold the king nine off. For me, it seems, like we just kind of went through the logic a little bit. It seems close to me because I don't know. I feel like you're getting check raised a lot there, or just check called with a hand like pocket jacks, and which maybe pocket jacks. If they do check call, then maybe you might want to go into three barrel mode and just bet the flop turn river and just sort of figure they can't call. So that is an argument for betting because you can sort of get that information. But again, I feel like you get check raised a lot, and also you can make it more confident bet later on because of, I'm going to steal the king three with a little bit of dead money in there, because a lot of times the turn is another queen or 10 or some kind of lower card, and they check again, and now you know that it's almost certainly an ace-king hand. So then you can you can make a little turn bet to protect your hand, and then more than likely take it down. The other thing is that there was a flush draw on the flop, and sometimes ace-king goes for a check raise all in there, with its two overs and a gut shot to the nuts. So now, by betting, you've set up a situation where he's outplaying you. He's check raising you all in, and you actually get outplayed by betting. So, awfully close to me. But, if anybody has any opinions on that situation, I'd love to hear counter arguments and such for what they think is the best play. So I think we're going to play about 6 or 7 more hands and call it a video here. We're getting towards the end, and I also want to go over Poker Tracker a little bit. So 6 or 7 more hands per table, I should say. The ace king here, I'm just gonna shove it. Make it 6. He makes it 20. Good for him if he has a better hand than me. So we'll just get it all in with him and hope for the best. And so he folds, so that's a pretty good outcome. Maybe he thought he had to call 400 more. Got scared. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm doing. I guess I'm thinking I'm up small, but not sure. I guess we'll know when we go over the Poker Tracker. Well, this guy's a very low, high went to showdown, low fold to flop bet. It's for a small sample, but I think I'm going to leave him alone and just fold the king 6. 7-3 is definitely a fold. This guy Shaitan seems to be a pretty good player that just sat. On the left here, an 18-15, decent sample. I know I have played with him some at 5-10, 10-20. Maybe he takes shots. Maybe this is his normal game. I don't know. Maybe he's a really good player and he's making a video for some other site. Who knows? But I think, from what I remember, I think he's a regular at the low to mid limits and takes shots occasionally at higher ones. And so A7 suited. I don't know enough. A lot of times I would 3-bet here just because it looks like he's isolating Poison Ivy, but I'm going to fold without some more information. And not a horrible spot if these guys had deeper stacks to squeeze with and turn a junk hand into what I feel is probably a profitable one if I were to squeeze. But with not that much behind them, they're likely to shove a wider range of hands back into my face, and I don't want to deal with that. So I'm just going to fold. if Shaitan were to have 3-bet, I probably, or raise, I probably would have 3-bet him. And, you know, try to get some value out of this awful hand. But right now I'm just going to raise the limper. Let me own you is his name. I'm going to try to own him. Okay, so I made a pair. Not the best flop, obviously, but I do think that I was going to say betting would be best, but now that he leads in, I mean, I don't know what this means. I honestly have no idea. It may not be horrible to just shove, given his stack, but gosh, I don't know. It's close. I'm just going to fold. The reason why I say shove is because I think he's bluffing a lot. I think he has a flush draw a decent amount of time. I do have a pair, so I have the flush draw beat. He could occasionally have like a weak ace, and he's doing the old Mike Sexton World Poker Tour, lead out and find out where you stand. and then when I shove, he says, "Oh, I know now. I'm beat," and folds. Might be optimistic though. And so I felt it was pretty marginal. I really don't think I could have made. I feel like it was all about the same EV-wise, pretty close. Shoving, folding. I probably should never call it really, because I have no idea where I'm at in the hand. Yeah, so anyway, somewhat interesting stuff there. And so let's pull up the poker tracker here. Alright, so we played, let's try to get a little better view here. Okay, so we played 114 hands. We played a 40 VPIP, so that's pretty darn high. Went to showdown pretty high, over 30%. Standard showdowns in the low to mid 20s. High is probably like upper 20s to 30. My pre-flop raise 38. It's pretty intense stuff. Won money when soft flop, kind of low. It was 40. I just don't really feel like, you know, other than that one lucky club that we hit there, I don't think we ran that well. So we were kind of not winning a lot of flops. I would expect to be above 50, given that these guys fold too much, in my opinion, at these limits. So the aggression factor was 12.6. Flop aggression 14, turn 2, river infinity. So, you know, these don't mean a whole lot because the sample size is really small. But we'll take that win rate all day long, 9.93. Actually, I just realized I went over a stat wrong. The one at showdown was 33. The win to was 13. That is extremely low. Like I said, mid to high 20s, or mid to low 20s would be normal. High 20s would be kind of high. One at showdown should be around 50%, depending on your style. And I can't remember. I think this style yields a little lower one at showdown than someone with a tighter style. I think high 40s, anywhere in the 50s is really good when you play lag. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I get some questions from you. I'll certainly keep my eyes peeled in the forums and answer any and all questions you guys may have about this video. I don't think we got too many you know, interesting spots, but I feel like a lot of the concepts we discussed can have a lot of value in the future if you apply them, you know, some of the things we talked about into your game. So I wish you guys luck with that, and like I said, feel free to comment in the forums. Good luck with your games. Bye.